Good morning, everybody. We'll start today's meeting. If you'd like to start with the Karakia.
Whakatake te hau ki te uru, whakatake te hau ki te tonga, ke mā kene ke uta, ke mā taratara ke tai, he aka ana te atakura, he teo, he huka, he hauhu, te hei Māori ora.
Thank you, Jordan. Health and safety will take as read. Everyone's previously been and heard it, so any apologies? I think only one is Stu. Mover in a second. Noel. All in favour? Against? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Pamela. Is that anything? It was Noel. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Is any disclosures of interest? Haven't got any, Bruce? No. Good. So we'll move on to the main item. So, speak, Petra, or you want to go straight to the? Oh, sorry. Oh, the minute. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Minutes of the last meeting. Mover in a second. Got no ICM in this. Can we put an action down for that, please, Jordan? Happy to move? Yeah. All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. Right. Patrick.
Good morning, councillors. I'll just quickly introduce Andrew Thomas, Nikki Ismay and Natasha Granger, who will introduce the report and be available for any questions you have. Just before I hand over though, I just want to thank the team for their work. This is the second Natural Heritage Fund round this calendar year. Pretty phenomenal amount of work behind the scenes. So look, well done, and I know you guys are stoked to be able to get this done in time and get it for the community groups doing all the great work out there. So I don't want to say anything else. I'll just hand it over straight to the team. Yep. Thanks.
Cool, thank you. Yep, I was going to make the same point that we've had 2 back-to-back rounds of the NHF this year. So yeah, a lot of work gone into getting this done. So I'm going to hand over to Nikki, who's going to go through the presentation, which is basically a summary of the report, and then we'll take any questions. Thank you.
We'll take the report as read, but we're just going to have a few minutes to run through the main points. So, slide.
You bring the mic.
That better? Cool. Okay, so the NHF 25-26 funding round opened on the 7th of April 2025. It was open for approximately a month and closed on the 5th of May 2025. Our total budget was $2,349,326, less prior commitments for NHF grants previously approved, and that was $541,218, and then another $150,000 committed by councillors for the Collective Impact Initiative and the multiple Māori-owned land project. So that left us with $1,658,108 available for distribution in this round. Next slide. Okay, so here we've got a map, and this shows the distribution of the current NHPP funded projects. So that's the Natural Heritage Fund projects, which there are 8 in pink. 20 Environmental Initiative Fund projects, which are the dots in blue, and 36 small-scale community initiative projects, which are the yellow dots. The table up on the screen is actually in the report. I think it's page 19 of your agenda, and it summarises the applications and the recommendations. And we've outlined these in a bit further detail further on in this presentation. The green lines in the table are recommended for full funding, and the two blue lines at the bottom are recommended for partial funding. And I will go through that in a bit more detail as we go on. This shows the distribution, the geographic distribution of the applicants for the 25-26 round, the round that we're considering this morning. And I just wanted to make a note that the project that's in the Hamilton area is actually much wider than that. So it encompasses the Waikato, Hauraki, Matamata Piako, Waipa, South Waikato and Waitomo districts. But just for the purposes of this map, we've just had a dot in the area where Waikato Environment Centre operate out of, which is Hamilton. Okay, so these are a combination of the NHF projects that we are currently funding in pink, combined with those that have applied in this round. So again, it's just really to give you an idea of the geographic distribution. If councillors decide to accept the recommendations, then that will be the distribution of currently funded projects. So staff this morning are recommending that 6 applications are funded, totalling $1,658,108, and that will consist of 4 applications fully funded as requested and 2 applications partially funded over 2 of the 3 years. So we're recommending that the 4 highest scoring applications will be fully funded, and that will enable them to carry out their projects to the full extent and mitigate against any risk of reduced outcomes or project failure. And the 2 lowest scoring applications are partially funded for around 2 of the 3 years that they requested funding. And that enables them to receive some funding while working within the budget constraints that we have in this round. And it also gives them time to build up capacity and capability and have the opportunity to demonstrate outcomes to council. Okay, so the first one is Tongariro Natural History Society, or Project Tongariro, and they're requesting funding for labour, and that is a core staff for hub operational costs. Project Tongariro is operating as a sub-regional hub, which we've had a number of conversations about around over the last couple of years, and they provide capacity and capability building in the sub-projects that they help to operate. They have a focus on native tree planting and both animal and plant pest control, along with significant leadership in the area of environmental education. They have requested $300,000 over a 4-year term, and staff are recommending that we fully fund. They received a combined assessment score of 92%. Next slide. The second project is He Akina Limited, and they are requesting funding for labour for pest animal control, track cutting and marking. This is a mana whenua-led project, and they're building capacity and capability for Māori on and around Tauhara Maunga. They have identified 4 separate work streams, and the pest management project is the one they're requesting council funding to support, so one of the 4 work streams. They received a combined assessment score of 87%. They're requesting $294,976 over a 3-year term, and staff are recommending that we fully fund. The next project is the Whenua Kiwi Trust, the Whenua Kite Kiwi Care Group. They're requesting funding for contracted labour for pest animal control and some materials, traps, lures and consumables. So this group have a long history of delivering significant outcomes for biodiversity. Probably one of the most interesting things that we've seen as a demonstration of those outcomes are pictures of flocks of over 200 keraru that are now seen in the Whenua-Kite area as a result of the pest control over the last 25 years. And their project includes pest animal control at both Whenua-Kite and a New Zealand dotterel protection project at Hotwater Beach. They are requesting $319,915 over a 3-year term, and staff are recommending fully funding. And they received a combined assessment score of 84%. E Ora Tane Pest Management Limited, they are requesting funding for pest control labour. And they undertake a landscape scale pest animal control program near Lake Rotaira and within 2 sub-projects on the Desert Road. They're a mana whenua-led landscape scale pest control program. They employ local whānau and integrate mātauranga Māori into their operations. They're requesting $300,000 over 3 years, and staff are recommending that they be fully funded. And their combined assessment score was 80%. The next one is the Waikato Environment Centre, or Go Eco. They're requesting funding for a project to protect wetland and stream biodiversity, and it's for labour to design and run community workshops and contracted labour costs to support experts delivering these workshops. So this project seeks to increase wetland and stream biodiversity by building community capability and capacity through education, raising awareness of the value, protection and restoration of freshwater wetlands and their surrounding catchments. This project is providing a bridge between catchment work, so soil and water, and biodiversity projects. They are requesting $387.581, and staff are recommending that we partially fund for 2 years, $265,498, and they received a combined assessment score of 78%. And the final one is Te Paiaka Lands Trust, or Tipu Environmental. They're requesting funding for labour, for pest control work and project management. Tipu Environmental have been undertaking landscape scale pest control with a particular focus on protecting the peka, long-tailed bat population on the Horahora maunga. So they are requesting $297,000, and staff are recommending partial funding of $177,718 over a 2-year term. And they received a combined assessment score of 78%. So just a little bit of background for the next round. We anticipate that the next round will open in early 2026, and there'll be approximately $2 million to distribute. That amount is increasing because we have taken away the ability for internal borrowing when we reviewed the policy in April 2024. And so that means that we won't have any prior commitments for previously funded projects. Beg your pardon? Around 2 million. And happy to take any questions.
Ian,
Yes, just to clarify, so the $300,000 for Tongariro is spread over 4 years, so that's effectively $75,000 a year.
Correct.
And with the Waikato Environment Centre, 265 over 2 years, 132,000. What happens after the 2 years is up? Do they get a chance to reapply?
Yes, they will, if they wish to do so.
Okay. And finally, only 6 applicants to the whole project?
Yes, we had 6 applicants. We actually originally had 7, but one applicant withdrew while we were going through the assessment process, so we haven't included details in the report. But we had 6 applications and we're recommending funding for 6.
I also note that a number of them are previously Jobs for Nature projects that have stopped and we're now picking up the funding for. Yeah,
Some of them are, yes.
yeah, thank you.
Boyd,
Oh, thank you. This is working. Okay, righty ho. Couple of things, please, Nikki. Is there a requirement for these recipients to return a report on how effective their projects are? And is there any long-term monitoring being introduced yet to see if we're actually getting any tangible results?
Yes, definitely. There is. So in terms of the process for due diligence, we obviously have a funding deed which is developed and agreed upon between ourselves and the groups, and that includes KPIs, so key performance indicators. Each group is required to provide an annual progress report, and there is a financial section in there where they have to outline project expenditure, planned versus actual expenditure, and include reasons for any variances. They have to provide us with evidence in the form of, pay slips, invoices, that sort of thing, and schedules of accounts. And then they also, in that progress report, have to provide other information. So they have to provide a progress report against the key performance indicators. So they have to give us evidence for achieving the KPIs based on the agreed measurements. So we have agreed measurements with them. They have to report on any key risks and issues and mitigation against that. They give us stakeholder and governance information and planning for the next 12 months. So that happens every year if it's a multi-year agreement. And then at the end, they provide us with a final acquittal, and that will also have all of those things. In addition to that, we also require them to provide a set of audited accounts each year, and we reserve the right to do an independent audit if need be. Most of the groups are doing monitoring, if not all. I need to check directly with Andrew, but we do require them to have monitoring in place.
Is that monitoring the kill rate or the wildlife outcome?
Usually they'll do a combination of both. So for example, the Whenua Kite, they have been doing Kiwi call surveys, their annual, Andrew?
That manual Kiwi call, is it a robotic kind of electronic?
It's actually people out in the field.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to give you an example, because we have previously funded Whenua Kite through the NHF, their Kiwi population density has increased 5-fold in 24 years. So initially, when they started the survey, there was 1 pair per 102 hectares in 2001, and in 2025, it was 1 pair per 22 hectares. So we are requiring monitoring, but we work with each of the groups to develop appropriate monitoring, and it's usually a combination of if they're doing pest animal control, what has been caught, but also what populations of native species are coming back.
Good. Well, that sounds okay. So landscape management. Are any of these projects funding aerial operations, aerial poisoning operations?
No.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Bruce.
Yeah, thanks for the report, and it looks pretty straightforward to me. I just did want a little bit, if you could make some comments about the governance of all of these projects, the governance and leadership, because that's, I'm sure you've done the due diligence, but there's no mention in the report about that. And also, if you could just give us an indication of the levels of co-funding that some of them might be getting, because I would imagine, looking at some of the projects, they wouldn't be able to do the full range of landscape scale restoration without a bit of co-funding. Yeah.
Okay, so just with regards to the governance, the first point that I'll make is that anybody that applies to the NHF must be a legal entity. So that would be for example, a trust or an incorporated society, and they, of course, are bound by any of the rules and regulations applying to being a trust or a legal entity. In terms of, as I mentioned, reporting, we require them to report on their governance, and just as part of our relationship activities, we always try to attend AGMs and that sort of thing. Staff will attend AGMs and have regular meetings with these groups. Was there any more detail on that?
No, that's fine. I mean, obviously you've done a due diligence and you've got to be watching because, as we know in projects like this, the governance and leadership occasionally, there might be a glitch or something and you're just keeping an eye on things. So, yeah, and so the other part of my question was the co-funding. If you can just give us any general indication.
So Andrew's just saying that as part of our annual reporting, if there's any change in the governance structure, they are required to report that to us.
That's good.
We work very closely with them, so there have been examples where things have changed, and we are always across it, and that's part of our relationship
I just
management.
wanted the reassurance.
Yeah,
that's great. So,
and then as for the co-funding, we have outlined that in the report. So if you have a look at table 3, and I can just run through it with you because there's only 6. So for Tongariro Natural History Society, they've requested 300,000, and that's 11.3% of the total project cost. With He Akina, they have requested 294,976, which is 48.6% of the total project cost. For Whenua Kiwi, 319,915,000, which is 67.9% of the project cost. And for Ioratane, 300,000, which is 13.5% of the total project cost. For Waikato Environment Centre, they've requested 50.3% of the total project cost, noting that as a sub-regional hub, they have many projects, this is just that particular project. And then for Te Paiaka, they have requested 38.9% of the total project cost. We have quite a good record compared to other funders of getting, there are other funders that require it to be under 50%. When we did some analysis last year, overall, we worked out at about 25%. And so we were leveraging an additional 75% on average, but it does vary from project to project, but we require co-funding.
That's what I wanted. Again, it's when people use terms like landscape scale restoration, you know that there's going to be something more to it, and you've explained it all very well. Thank
you. Bruce, Warren.
Thanks, Robbie. Just with the Waikato Environment Centre, they seem to be the only ones not doing something on the ground in this project. So what sort of indices do you look for to monitor that returns on this investment in that space? Obviously this is a training project as such.
Yeah, it's a good question because it is much more difficult when you're not actually delivering an operational on the ground project. But we will work with them to develop appropriate KPIs, and they will include things such as obviously how many training sessions, workshops, that sort of thing they have delivered and what numbers of engagement they've got. And then we do also ask them typically for information on the groups that they're engaging with, what kind of outcomes those groups are getting, but we really can't hold them responsible for that in the funding agreement. We had quite a big discussion around this in our moderation meeting when we were developing these recommendations. And one of the things that I guess helps give us certainty is that they're a very well-established group with a long history of delivering good outcomes through capacity and capability building work. But we certainly keep a close eye on it, and we work with them to make sure that the project is delivering. It tends to be longer term when you're looking at capacity and capability building.
Okay, thanks. That gives us a bit of confidence around that and the feedback you're getting with groups that they are training and that sort of thing. Probably my only other question is we've seen various levels of burden for discretionable funds. Is there any indication on what sort of cost this is to the council to administer this Natural Heritage Fund?
Yep, I can give you that
Thank
information.
you.
So last year's figures I have for the Natural Heritage Fund. So the labour costs were 91,693, and the management costs, which is keeping the lights on, etc., is 147,217. So that's a total of 238,910. And when you look at the fund available for this round of just over 1.6 million, that's about a 14.4% cost as a percentage of the funds available. There was some work done by our Finance Business Services looking when the review was done of this program a couple of years ago, and they looked at some other councils and the burden was as high as sort of 40%. So we're 14.4. Some other councils are looking at about 40%. Obviously, we have been tasked with and have succeeded in getting some really good efficiencies in place, but it also does depend on the size of the funds that you're giving out, because the burden doesn't really change depending on what kind of funds you're giving.
No, thanks for that, and appreciate you having those figures at your fingertips, because it is obviously something that councillors are very interested in. Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks, Warren, for stealing my question about Waikato Environmental Centre. So, Noel, please.
Just a couple of explanations, please. I think I understand what landscape scale pest control program, etc., means, but can you just clarify what in like in the Lake Rotorua pests, you say landscape scale pest program. So are you talking, like we normally think of possums, stoats, ferrets, all that stuff, but if deer, anything that's there? I can just give actual detail.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that all species are being eradicated, and we do have some definitions which we developed to help define what landscape scale means, because of course it can mean something different to everybody. You got the landscape?
You can send it offline if you like, but
yeah, we have about 6 criteria that can define it. So, for example, it might be that the project is more than 400 hectares in size. It might be that they're operating as a sub-regional hub whereby they are delivering activities over a wide range for a large number of groups. It might be that there's multiple ecosystems involved. So we have a predefined criteria of how we would define landscape scale.
Because someone could just make a statement, that's what we're doing, and actually not understand the scale of it.
So when we were devising the eligibility, we have 6 criteria, and they need to meet the definitions of each of the 6 criteria. They self-assess that prior to applying, and then we do a check to make sure that we agree with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ian.
Well, yeah, one last question. It's just table 1 has got the existing commitments for 25-26, page 19, or 541,000. You seem to indicate those are going to come to an end at the end of this year, and so there's no ongoing funding requirements for Mangatautari, for example. This is the last year.
That's correct.
They'll need to reapply.
Their funding agreement comes to an end, and if they are looking for more funding, they will need to reapply in the next round.
Cool. Thank you.
Got a question, Mike? Oh, well, you had a lot to say earlier. This might have a question.
Could I just jump in there? Chapo, is it coming up again?
Oh.
Just on that point though, once we get to 2 million next year and we make commitments for ensuing years, surely we bring it down. This is just putting us in a nice place next year. And you talk about the change of criteria, but if we're multi-funding, we're eating into that 2 million, aren't we?
So we made a change which was endorsed by the Strategy and Policy Committee, where if a group applies for funding, the full amount that they apply for comes out of the year in which they apply, and what we call that is the removal of internal borrowing. So, for example, in the case of Tongariro Natural History Society, they have applied for 300,000 across 4 years. If ICMC confirm that, then that amount would come out of this year's 1.6 million budget.
Reserve out here and you just feed that out as it.
Correct.
Right, okay, that's good. Understand the implications there. Thank you.
So it is to clarify, they don't get 300,000 in the first year that you pay it out, yeah.
No, it gets paid out in the year that they need it, and we keep it in a reserve. But it's taken from this year's budget.
And it's subject, obviously, to their reporting
Yeah.
being adequate. Yes.
So at any one time, there's several $1 million sitting in that account waiting to issue out year after year. Yeah, collecting interest.
There is money in there. Yep.
Yeah, or better us earning interest.
And it makes it simpler too for us going into next year, because
need to move.
the year after that we'll have a similar amount, and the year after that, because it's not already committed.
Pardon? You think so? Is there any more questions? Could we have a mover and a seconder? Yeah, but is there any more questions? You haven't got one, Pamela? No. Oh, all in favour, say aye. Against? Carried. Well, thanks very much for your report. It was very detailed and you delivered on any questions asked by councillors, so well done today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll look forward to you announcing that to the lucky recipients, and they can get on with their hard work. And as myself and Warren and a few councillors this year have been around to some of these organisations, and they are hard-working organisations that are out there doing the best for their community.
Has the recipients been notified yet?
We can't notify them until you've made the decision.
Good.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody for their hard work. Well done. Oh, yeah. Patrick's got something to.
Yeah, so on your question earlier, Noel, around the minutes, so Greg's got back to me and he said practical completion is a technical contractual term. All right, that generally means that all physical works are finished and there's some minor tasks to wrap up the contract. So all the works on the ground are finished, just the contract isn't quite finished. So that's what practical.
So it sounds like a code of
Practical
compliance issue.
completion. Yeah. There'll be some minor tasks to complete. Yeah.
You going to do the kirikia? I will let Jordan do the kirikia.
Uni here mai te uri tapanui, kia wātea, kia mama, te tēnako, te tēnana, te hinenaro, I te ari kakutu, kia rā e ronga, e whakare ake kia ronga, kia tēnā, humie hui tariki e.
Thank you. Close the meeting at 10:05. Thank you.